What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Charter Podcast, brought to you by St. Xavier University. I'm Ruthie Polinsky with Clay Harbor and Alex Shapiro. We are back after what feels like was a long weekend. I don't know. Was it a long weekend? No.
It was just a weekend without Bear stuff on the weekend.
It wasn't a long weekend. Right.
Yeah.
And also, I feel like I haven't seen your beautiful faces in a minute. So, everyone, I hope, had wonderful weekends. We have a lot to get into. Some news we're going to talk about that transpired over the weekend and into today, even this morning, that I think is really important to. It all has a little bit of relevance, I think, for the Bears. And we're also going to dive into Clay's takeaways from last week. Of course, mandatory minicamp is signed, sealed, delivered, but we haven't really gotten Clay's perspective, who was also out there all 3 days last week, and we can kind of take a deeper dive, I think, into some of those topics, continuing from Alex and my Thursday wrap-up mini-pod, micro-pod, whatever you want to call it. Let's start with, I guess maybe we could start with the news of the day, and then we can kind of work our way backwards. The news of the day is that the Green Bay Packers are releasing Jaire Alexander, who Bears fans are quite familiar with. I think there's a lot to dive into. Obviously, this affects the Bears because they likely won't be going up against him twice a year. But there was he had a strange year last year, right? There was some injuries. He didn't play a ton. There's a history of, however you want to describe sort of the conflict between Jaire Alexander and the Green Bay Packers. Let's start with just sort of your immediate reaction and where your head goes as to its relevancy with the Chicago Bears, Alex.
Well, it's another huge move in the division. Not too long ago, we spoke about Frank Ragnow and how devastating that was going to be for the Lions. A guy in his prime, retiring, meant so much to that offensive line. And now we have another player who, when he is healthy, as you mentioned, he's dealt with the injuries the past couple seasons. When he's healthy, this is a very good cornerback, all-pro cornerback, Pro Bowl cornerback, ball-hawking cornerback. So if he is now out of the division, the Bears are trying to get their offense on track. They're trying to get past the Lions, the Vikings, the Packers, right? They got to make it past all of those teams if they want to go where they want to go. This can only help, in my opinion, the Bears accomplish that goal. Caleb Williams, when you don't have a ball-hawking cornerback out there, a little bit easier to take care of the football, get some completions. Again, yes, he has missed some time the past couple of seasons with injuries. When he's out there, he's still really, really, really good. So you got to see it as a plus for the Bears, for Ben Johnson, for Caleb Williams, as they try and make progress in the NFC North.
Ruthie, do you know what the best ability is?
Availability.
Availability is the best ability, Alex Shapiro. And
I'm no rookie, Clay. This isn't my rookie season. I've been around this league a minute.
You look at the last 4 years, this guy's played 4 games, 16, 7, and 7. So that's the problem here. The Packers wanted to keep him. They offered him a pay cut, a restructured contract, which equals pay cut. He didn't want to take the pay cut. He says, no, you pay me that money even though I'm playing half the games. The Packers say, no, you're not even playing half the games. We're not going to pay you this full 4-year, $84 million contract. So he stood on business and said, cut me or pay me. And they said, all right, we're going to cut you. I think he'll still get some decent interest. I know it's an interesting part of the year. I don't know the contract details, what he's due to get, how much dead cap is there, what it means for the Packers. But what it does mean for the Bears is there's going to be a little bit more of a hole in that Packers defensive backfield. Obviously, he wasn't healthy all the time, but when Jaire Alexander is out there, he is a guy that can play, that can lock up a number one wide receiver, and now you don't got that. So I think that's important for the Bears. You got Frank Ragnow, the center, one of the best centers in the league, retiring, and now you got Jaire Alexander getting released from your rival. So I think these are two big things, especially for Jeff Hafley's defense, the way he likes to put the onus on the defensive backfield to make sure that they're able to cover. So I think it's going to be interesting to see the Packers, what they do now. Obviously, he wasn't healthy the whole year, but like Alex said, All-Pro, Pro Bowl, and all that jazz caliber player when he's healthy is now out of the NFC North, which is good for our Bears.
And I've got the cap numbers just because you alluded to Clay. Dead cap, according to overthecap.com this year, just over $17 million and over $7.5 million in cap savings. So they save a little bit this year, but that dead cap number hurts. So financially, like, impactful move as well for the Packers.
Is there a team, guys, that stands out to you, or maybe a few teams that stands out to you where this would be a good fit?
That's a good question. Who's in? I mean, I feel like every team could use a playmaking cornerback. The question is the health, right? Who's going to take a chance on the health? Who has maybe an interesting young bench guy? Like, part of me is like, 𝗭 Stevenson looked really good. 𝗭 Stevenson looked really, really good, in my opinion, during minicamp. But Terrell Smith was out. Zay Frazier was out. If those were impactful injuries, and if 𝗭 Stevenson didn't look good, I might even say the Bears, because they have those young guys who can continue to develop. If things don't work out, okay, maybe we'll just go to them. And if the money makes sense, again, like, this is a guy who intercepts the ball a lot, can score touchdowns, good cornerback when he's healthy.
Yeah, I think there's probably some people out there that say, oh, you can never have too many great corners, especially if you're going to get someone like him at a discount, right? Because the Packers are releasing him, so you can pay him nothing, in theory. But I think there's an element of the Bears want to see what they have in these young guys, and they've invested in this position. You have one of the best corners in the league in Jalen Johnson. And as you mentioned, 𝗭 Stevenson, they're really counting on. Sounds like he's in a really good headspace. So I agree with you. I think you can let him go somewhere else and, maybe deal with his injury issues elsewhere, if you ask me. Yeah. Let's talk about some of the other news that affects the Bears, as there was some speculation that Nick Chubb was a name the Bears were kicking the tires on in terms of would he potentially be a nice addition for the Bears running back room. He is reportedly visiting with the Texans and will be signing there, according to multiple reports. Is this a loss, a miss for the Bears? What does this tell you about how the Bears feel about Nick Chubb and or where they stand in the running back room? Clay, why don't you start?
I'll start us off. Yeah. I think that remains to be seen if it's a miss. If Nick Chubb comes out and he has a year to where he looks like the old Nick Chubb that was averaging over 5 yards per carry, 85 yards per game, a guy that could just get tough yards in between the tackles, really strong runner, a guy you could just hand it to. Ben Johnson talked about how important it is to have a running back that you can just hand the ball to get things back on track. That was what Nick Chubb used to be. Obviously, he had an injury, huge knee injury. He came back last year, wasn't the same, had another injury, missed some games. So can he stay healthy? So if he comes into Houston, which Houston's running back room gets interesting now, because obviously you have Mixon, you have Dameon Pierce. They had a fourth-round draft pick, the kid from USC. So honestly, if one of those guys get released, that would be an interesting target for the Bears. I mean, with the depth that they have, looking at someone, they could probably have to release a pretty good player. But if Chubb shows that he can bounce back to that form, if he shows that he is healthy, my question would be, why wouldn't you bring him in for a workout, for a tryout? And that's assuming that they didn't try to. I mean, I don't know. It said in the report when he signed that he turned down offers, maybe more lucrative offers from other teams. I'm not sure who those other teams were. Is it possible that it's the Bears? I guess it's possible. If I was Nick Chubb and the Bears were interested, I would look at the Bears and say, wow, this is excellent opportunity for me. Look at this roster. They got a draft pick from last year that hasn't done much, a 7th rounder this year. DeAndre Swift is the starting guy. If I'm healthy, I feel like I could get the bulk of the carries this year. So to me, if they didn't offer him, if they didn't try to bring him in for a workout or at least a physical, and he comes out and has a big year, when you have this need at running back, when Ben Johnson loves to use 2 running backs, when it seems like a healthy Nick Chubb would be the perfect fit with DeAndre Swift, that smash and dash, thunder and lightning, Sonic and Tails? No,
Knuckles.
Sonic and Knuckles. Sonic and Tails. Sonic and Knuckles. I don't know where I got Tails from.
Tails is Sonic's little sidekick,
right? Yeah, different side, different time.
Different sidekick. Yeah.
So then that would make sense for me. So I say all that to say we got to wait and see what Nick Chubb looks like.
And I think the Bears are in a position. I'm sorry, Ruthie.
I was going to kind of tee you up, Alex, and say, well, doesn't this maybe tell you that the Bears like what they have? And maybe they're interested in this competition between Kyle Monangai, Roschon Johnson, wherever that may lead them.
Absolutely. And Ben Johnson, when he was asked to single out a few players who caught his eye, who, impressed him over the course of the spring session, Kyle Monangai was one of those players that he listed. Monangai, the pass catching was kind of a question mark heading in. We saw it on the tape. We're like, hey, it looks like he can do this a little bit, but didn't do much of it at Rutgers. Looked pretty good catching the football at mandatory minicamp. Caught a touchdown. Capped off that long 90-yard 2-minute drive that, got talked about a lot. That was capped off by a Kyle Monangai touchdown.
With the ones.
With the ones, exactly. So DeAndre Swift has that relationship with Ben Johnson. He knows what he's getting there. If he works with Eric Bieniemy and they can get him, really just hitting the hole, looking great, could be really good. We know he's very good also with the ball in his hand in space, home run hitter. Roschon Johnson's a guy who maybe didn't have the best opportunity to show what he can do last season. It just didn't work out for him in the Shane Waldron offense last year. And he didn't have an opportunity to show what he could do because the pads weren't on, right? He's a guy, when the pads go on, that's when Roschon Johnson shows what he can do. So I think there's a little bit of a wait and see factor with Roschon Johnson as well. And then obviously Kyle Monangai was a big question mark. That said, let's say the Bears still want to add a running back later. With me saying, I think they're kind of in wait and see mode. They want to continue to evaluate what they have on their roster. There are still a lot of guys in this free agency class where Nick Chubb can be a difference maker. That is, everybody knows that. When he is at the top of his game, he's one of the best running backs in the league. That's without a doubt. But there are other good running backs still out there. Clay, you talk about J.K. Dobbins all the time. He went and visited with the Broncos, remains unsigned, difference maker when healthy. One more guy who has kind of fallen off at the tail end of his career. But again, you want to talk about a legit Sonic and Knuckles, one of the original Sonic and Knuckles for Ben Johnson. Jamal Williams is still out there. They could just completely recreate the Detroit Lions running back room with DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. And he could, Ruthie's kind of cringing. He has not been good the last couple seasons. He has not gotten the touches really, but he's been healthy. He's been available. And the last year he was in a Ben Johnson offense, what did he do? Scored 17 touchdowns. So
what year was that, Alex? What year was that?
2020?
Yeah. Okay. Just checking.
2022. I don't know where I got 2020 from. 2022. So this is an ancient history here. Last year, I'm looking it up right now. 48 carries for 164 yards, 1 touchdown. Didn't get a ton of opportunities, 3.4 yards per carry. But my point is, even if the Bears do want to add a running back down the line because they're in wait and see mode right now, and then maybe we'll go down there are still options out there on the free market that could make sense for this team. We're not looking for a running back 1, in my opinion. DeAndre Swift is your running back 1. You're looking for a complementary piece. I think they're going to be complementary pieces out there.
Also, don't forget that Ian Wheeler is on this roster, and he was back out there this week. He wasn't doing a ton of work during team periods, but that's someone that the Bears coaching staff, who obviously is now turned over, but the front office and coaching staff were really high on. I think that's someone that is going to get a fair opportunity to prove himself to this next coaching staff. Someone who's really smart, fast, and has sort of almost beat out Roschon Johnson last year, right? So there's something to, before, of course, the injury seen across the world on Hard Knocks. So I think there's something to see there as well. Like there's potential for that room to actually be more deep than I think people are giving it credit for. And if they weren't sold on Nick Chubb yet and had some question marks about, his health or effectiveness at this point in his career, they felt okay letting him walk away and say, all right, there may be some other options for us down the line, but for right now, we feel really good about what we have. And good for them. If so, it's a strong decision. That's a choice, instead of panicking.
One thing we should mention. Oh, sorry, Clay, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, look, if they're depending a lot on DeAndre Swift here. I mean, you're one DeAndre Swift injury away from being in a world of hurt at the running back position. Maybe Kyle Monangai does really come along. Maybe Roschon doesn't improve, but still, if DeAndre Swift goes down, are those guys' ceilings even high enough to where you're going to, in a Ben Johnson offense, a guy that loves to run the football, that you're going to be okay with Monangai and Roschon as your two running backs, or Monangai and Ian Wheeler as your two running backs going into Sundays? Like, you got to add depth to this room, man. I mean, it's crazy.
Travis Homer's also in the mix, who we know and has struggled with injury in his career as well, majorly viewed as a core special teams player. But I think, this is what they've done. I mean, Swift it was the same room last year, right? Minus an Ian Wheeler and Kyle Monangai. So obviously they won 5 games, didn't go great, and they couldn't run the ball. But you know what I'm saying? It's a choice. And I think they're really counting on that room, some of those guys at the back end that have questions about, to really kind of come into their own. Let's transition to another piece of news. Aaron Rodgers is officially going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. Whoop-de-doo, yeehaw. Everyone get excited about Aaron Rodgers playing again. Yeehaw. No, I'm teasing. I don't know why I said yeehaw, like we're in the South. Oh, it's weird.
He's not going to the Broncos.
He's not. He's going to Pittsburgh, which honestly, now there are reports coming out. Aaron Rodgers was maybe Pittsburgh's third choice, which I think is fascinating. I think it's a very team-friendly deal for Aaron Rodgers. And I think the Bears instantly just had another rivalry game smacked onto their schedule when the Pittsburgh Steelers walk into Soldier Field. What do you guys think of this news?
Week 12, baby. Drama. High theater. You were rolling your eyes at it. From a storytelling standpoint for us, you cannot imagine a better scenario for us, the Chicago media, than Aaron Rodgers is coming back to Soldier Field with a new team to determine whether or not, yes, he is in fact still the owner of the Chicago Bears. I mean, come on, you cannot script things better than that for week 12. So that will be very, very fun. I'm sure some Bears fans are screaming at their screens right now saying, no, this is not fun. What are you thinking? But from a pure narrative standpoint, it's pretty great. The question is, and I think this is actually kind of interesting, you mentioned the team-friendly deal portion of it for the Steelers. My big question was, there is so much BS. Mishigas is truly the best word for my Yiddish speakers out there. Mishigas is really the best word for what comes with Aaron Rodgers.
I don't know what that means.
Just like nonsense, craziness, BS, chaos, like all of that rolled into one. And how would that jive with Mike Tomlin, a no-nonsense coach, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, a no-nonsense franchise? And I had a wager, right? Just speaking, I guess among friends, that like the instant Steelers mandatory minicamp ends is the instant Aaron Rodgers becomes a Pittsburgh Steeler, because we know he doesn't want to do the offseason stuff like that. There's a long history of that, of him choosing himself over his team in those moments. But what happened? He signed before mandatory minicamp started. He's, probably going to be there for mandatory minicamp. And to me, is that the first sign that he's on board with the Tomlin way. He's on board with the team. Is this a little bit of an arc here for Aaron Rodgers? Okay, I'm not going to go to Egypt. I'm not going to do ayahuasca. I'll be there learning the playbook when I'm supposed to be there. I will fall in line. And I think that also is going to be a really interesting arc to watch throughout the season, because you would imagine Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin being kind of diametrically opposed in that sense. But if Tomlin can get Aaron Rodgers in line, if he could be the guy who does that and gets Aaron Rodgers playing to his Hall of Fame caliber ways again, like that team last year at moments looked like they were a quarterback away from being a really, really good football team. Russell Wilson kind of figured it out a little bit for a few games. Justin Fields, like obviously they were winning at the beginning of the year with Fields, but it didn't look great, with Fields at the helm. If Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers that we've seen for so many years, plus the rest of that team, again, lots of arcs, lots of storylines, lots of narrative to look out for.
Yeah, I think this makes him better. I think Aaron Rodgers, you hear a lot about Aaron Rodgers. I don't think he had as bad of a season last year as a lot of people thought. He was in a very dysfunctional situation over there in New York. His last 7 games, he had 13 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He had 28 touchdown passes, tied with Josh Allen, more than Patrick Mahomes. I thought that he did some good things. The only thing was his intermediate passing game. His deep ball still looked good. His quick game was good. The 10 to 20 yards intermediate throws, I did some research on it because you guys know I like to do some research. He was 30th in QBR and 30th in EPA per play in that intermediate zone. So you got DK Metcalf. I think you need to bring in another receiver. I think a guy that would work for them is a former Bear, Keenan Allen, to give him like that third down slot option, veteran guy, veteran presence. Obviously, it's not Alan Lazard or who's it, Randall Cobb, one of his boys, his cronies that he always brings around. But I think with the aging group of players, you got TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Minka Fitzpatrick, you have to take this shot right now. There people are raving about Will Howard, their 5th, 6th round draft pick. He's not going to be ready. Mason Rudolph is 9-8 in his career, 28 touchdowns, 20 interceptions. I think he's a solid backup, but you want to go for it this year. Mike Tomlin has to get to the playoffs, and he has to win a playoff game. I'm sorry, it's crazy to say about Mike Tomlin, but this guy hasn't won a playoff game in 9 years. 9 years. And Rodgers needs to win the playoff game too. Rodgers is 7-9, and Tomlin is 3-9 in the playoffs in the past 14 years. So these are two guys that haven't had that success, that are trying to take that next step. And I think what it means for us from a Bears perspective is this could be a very interesting game down the stretch. Aaron Rodgers coming back, a chance to take back the deed from a guy who holds a deed to your stadium, to your field, to your team, still owns us as a city. So I think this is like almost, it's ready for a storybook conclusion here. It's the Aaron Rodgers career. Maybe both teams in a playoff hunt. The Bears take back the deed. The Chicago, we own ourselves again. So I'm looking forward to it. Week 12, let's go.
And then they take that deed right to Arlington Heights. Here's the other thing that we didn't really talk about. Caleb Williams grew up modeling his game after Aaron Rodgers, and now he gets to play against them. And I think that's also really cool. He hasn't been shy that, listen, this is a guy I grew up idolizing, model my game after him, similar to, Justin Fields, modeling his game after Russell Wilson. All of these guys have different role models. So the Caleb Williams playing against his idol storyline is another really, really cool storyline.
Real quick before we change the subject, what do you guys make of the fact that not only was Justin Fields reportedly the Steelers' first choice and a quarterback this offseason, but that the Jets plucked him away and, in theory, probably offered him more money, which is why Justin went to the Jets making $40 million. How should that make Bears fans feel that Justin Fields was a hot commodity this offseason by two teams? Obviously, the Jets are the Jets, but Aaron Glenn, highly respected. He was, I would say, probably after Ben Johnson, the number 2 darling in terms of head coaching candidates, someone who wanted to see something in Justin Fields, but also that Mike Tomlin wanted Justin Fields, which I think is a little confusing, right? Because they went away from Justin Fields to have Russell Wilson, and then when Russell Wilson stunk, they never went back to Justin. But how should Bears fans feel about that?
Clay, I'll let you kick this one off.
I mean, that's an interesting question, Ruthie.
Thank you.
No, we all love Justin here, and I think that he was put in an untenable situation early in his career in Chicago, but I think that should make the Bears feel solid about their quarterback situation, just knowing that that's the guy that they kind of moved on from. And, I'll always still have love for Justin, and I always think that he could have been better in a better situation. But I think that that leads you to believe that there's still growth to be had in this quarterback situation, and that sometimes, everybody develops maybe at a different speed. And you see Justin is still getting these opportunities to be a starting quarterback after leaving Chicago. He gets benched last year for Russell when Russell comes back. Now he's back being the starter for the New York Jets. So it definitely is interesting. And it just goes to show you like the development and the pace of that is just different everywhere.
Yeah. There was never any doubt that Justin Fields could be a great quarterback. For him, it was just putting the pieces together and doing it consistently. There were moments where we would watch and would be like, that's it. That's Justin Fields being a great quarterback. That's what it looks like. Obviously, you add the rushing potential. Him as a threat to scramble is pretty much peerless in the NFL. It was just that sometimes you would look at it and be like, throw the ball. There he is. He's open. Throw the ball. He would stare a guy down and for whatever reason not pull the trigger. There were the fumbles were kind of an issue for him. So it was never that like Justin Fields can't be a great quarterback, so the Bears need to move on. It was the Bears had this unbelievable opportunity to reset their organization. They had the opportunity to draft a Caleb Williams. That was, in my opinion, kind of an undeniable opportunity. Reset your clock, get another quarterback with unbelievable upside, who is not Justin Fields, right? Like, is more of a quote unquote pocket passer, even though he's so great out of the pocket, right? Like in structure, I feel like I saw it more with Caleb Williams out of college than we had seen with the Bears with Justin Fields. And this is just me speaking. So if the Bears didn't have the opportunity to draft Caleb Williams, if they didn't have that number 1 overall pick, I bet Justin Fields is still a Chicago Bear, to be quite honest. That's just not how everything worked out, right? They did have the opportunity to draft Caleb Williams, so they pulled the trigger, they moved on, they reset their organization, they reset their clock, they reset everything. If things had not worked out that way, I think there is a chance that Justin Fields is still the QB, and they're still giving him that chance to develop because clearly, like, the tools are there. It's just, as Clay said, some people's development takes a little longer. Look at Jared Goff. It took him a long time before he became Jared Goff. It took the right situation for him to turn into Jared Goff. Look at Sam Darnold last year. Another top-tier quarterback. Took him a lot of opportunities. Took him pairing up with Justin Jefferson and Kevin O'Connell to have that unbelievable season. Sometimes everything just has to line up. Hopefully, I agree. Like, I want Justin Fields to succeed. Hopefully, line it up with Garrett Wilson, another Buckeye, great, helps him unlock the pieces. It just, for a variety of reasons, a lot of reasons, did not work out with the Bears.
I want to get to last week's mandatory minicamp and some more sort of Bears-centric topics as we kind of dive deeper into what we learned last week, what we can maybe learn this week before the team breaks for the summer. And the next time we see that team will be training camp, which is crazy to say. But obviously mandatory minicamp was last week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They have OTAs again this week. The one that's available to the media will be on Tuesday, but Ben Johnson told us last week it's going to be a veteran the veterans many of them got an early start to their summer. It'll be a younger focused team organized activity, OTA.
TOA. I like TOA.
TOA. And there will be a focus on special teams and the younger players. I imagine Caleb Williams will stick around. I would hope so. Rome Odunze said he's sticking around, so that sort of gave a little clue as to what that's going to look like. But some of the vets off for the summer. I saw Cole Kmet got married this weekend, guys. Congrats to him, which is very sweet. And so hopefully he gets an early start to his honeymoon, And but I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be interesting to see kind of who's there this week, because it sounds very optional for guys that are older in the mix. But Clay, I want to talk to you because Alex and I dove into a lot of it on Thursday. But I want to talk to you. What would you say was the headline from last week's mandatory minicamp?
I would say it's probably we were seeing some growth and I'm speaking offensively in Caleb Williams. Obviously the first few OTAs we watched, I thought that he was up and down, and he was up and down again in the mandatory minicamp. You go back to when I think it was on Thursday when he drives down the field, scores a touchdown. The next drive he's driving, and he overthrows Cole Kmet, and Tyreek Stevenson, picks him off to end the game. There was a couple of dropped interceptions, even on the one time that he scored. He had a couple dropped interceptions. But I thought it was up and down for Caleb. I wish I could come on here and say, as I'm sure you guys could, because everybody in Chicago is so sensitive to the Caleb topic. But I think it's something we need to cover because we have eyes on this, right? We're getting a chance to see this. So I think he has a lot of work to do, but you saw improvement and you saw growth, not perfect. My biggest thing is I think he needs to work on the timing, getting the ball out quick. I think his downfield accuracy still needs to improve. I think, but then there's also this. I've been in OTAs in minicamp with Tom Brady, Michael Vick, Nick Foles, Drew Brees. I'm not trying to name drop here, just giving you guys a little credibility. I've been in Matt Stafford, okay, a lot of different quarterbacks on the field, in the huddle, on the offense with these guys. Sometimes guys like Caleb Williams will not look as good in OTAs because he's a playmaker. I remember when Michael Vick was playing in OTAs and, was competing with Kevin Kolb. I know I'm going way back here, but Kolb won the job. Not trying to rhyme, but he did. Kevin Kolb won the job. He looked better than Michael Vick. Okay. Come Sunday, Kolb goes down with an injury. Michael Vick comes in. It wasn't even close because Michael Vick is a playmaking quarterback. Okay, in OTAs, maybe a guy, comes free off the edge, they tag off Michael Vick, and people say, oh, that's a sack. In real life, guess what? Mike spins off of that. He goes downfield to his left or right. He throws a dart, gets a first down. Okay, he might be a little bit slower in quick game than Kolb was, but there's so much playmaking ability that when the lights come on and the game starts, you see these playmaking quarterbacks play better than some of these guys that are a little bit quicker, maybe in the quick game, that are a little bit better in different parts of the game, Ruthie.
Can I ask a follow-up to that? Because obviously we know Caleb Williams has those playmaking abilities to the point where last year we're watching him make these unbelievable throws and scrambles and, just ability to, the unscripted things. But how sustainable is that for winning a lot and winning consecutively? Like, obviously there are going to be games where you need that, but also there are going to be games where you need him to be on time, on schedule, get the play call in and out of the huddle, get the ball out quick. Like, you want the great quarterbacks do both, right? Like that's what those guys do. That's what Aaron Rodgers does. That's what Tom Brady did. That's what, these guys can do stuff, the basic stuff too.
No, absolutely. And I go back to what Thomas Brown said last year. I thought he put it perfectly. He's like, we want to get this guy playing good quarterback, consistent on-time quarterback. When it's time to be Superman on 3rd and long in the red zone, go be Superman. But you got to pick your spots there. You can't be Superman all the time. So that's definitely something that's there. It's this balance. And you got to find the right balance. And I think Ben and Caleb are still learning that with each other. Okay, how are we going to balance my playmaking ability with the guy that Ben's had in his career with Jared Goff is one of those guys that are just very on time, very dialed into the rhythm of the offense. And I think Caleb can get to that. But right now, he's not as accurate and quick as you would want to see. Okay, I mean, I've played with a lot of quarterbacks. It's not perfect. I thought he's improved. And if he improves throughout the offseason and comes into training camp and continues to get better, I think he'll be in a good spot. And the other thing you got to think about is this. In OTAs, you don't have Ben Johnson looking at a defense, scheming up specific plays to get guys open. And when you have a few of these layups, he's not looking at a defense and saying, okay, there's holes here, 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 and here, and able to really condense a game plan for a guy, which he is shown to be so good at. So that's something that you got to take into account too. And I mean, that's where I just wanted to start because Caleb is obviously the number one topic.
I got a question kind of going off of that as well, Clay. Like you hear, it's one of those football isms that at this time of the year, the defense is just always ahead of the offense. And we've seen Dennis Allen has not held back. He's not been giving them vanilla looks, right? I mean, he's been doing crazy linebacker games. He's had weird dime packages and using safeties coming down and bailing out. So that, I guess, in your experience, is that true? And when does the offense tend to at least catch up with the defense at some point in the summer, hopefully, for the offense?
Yeah, especially when new offenses and new defenses are being used. The defense typically, for whatever reason, because they're still learning it as well, but the defense is ahead of the offense. And I'd say, around mid-training camp, you start to see that even out a little bit. And the other thing is when you start playing real football, because pads and even tackle, right? Because the thing with defensive players, here's what they love to do. They love to run past you in team drill or in whatever, even on a sack, on a play to where you catch the ball, the running back gets the ball. Guess what? They're not going to make all those tackles. There's going to be a lot of broken tackles. You're going to miss a sack here and there. You're going to run, how they run, because you're not tackling a lot of the time. Yeah. When you start being able to make these plays and break these plays, then you see things even out again. And just to go back to the quarterback situation, one other correlation that I want to see, and I mean, and this name isn't a name that's going to inspire a lot of confidence in people, but I remember when we drafted Blake Bortles in Jacksonville and OTAs, and I'm like, wow, this guy is not good at football at all. I'm like, he was just throwing ducks. I'm like, is this guy throwing a punt at me right now? He's late on throws. I'm like, we come to the year, we're starting Chad Henne, Ruthie's boy in Michigan, go blue. And Chad Henne goes down, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Blake's gonna have to come in. He's not ready. This guy's not ready. And he comes in, and the guy starts making plays. He was a playmaker. And I'm not saying he was a MVP, but Blake had a solid rookie year because of his playmaking ability. He could extend plays. We were able to scheme certain things open. You're able to give him half-field reads. You're able to do things to his ability. So when we're looking at Caleb and we're seeing a lot of things in OTAs, you're throwing a big book at him and you're seeing what he's able to do, right? You're kind of testing him if you're Ben to see, what am I going to be able to do with this guy? I've never coached him before. And now when you experiment with that, now you get a little bit of a baseline and you're going to say going into the game, okay, here's what I need to do to get the most out of this guy. So if we say Caleb is up and down, that doesn't mean the whole season's going to be up and down. That means right now when they're trying to figure out exactly what he can do is looking up and down.
You got to take a big step back too. I mean, you're absolutely right, Clay. And that's incredible insight and all that stuff. Taking another step back, the Bears are just trying to like get his left foot forward, changing his footwork. They're trying to see, can you be good under center? A guy who has basically played shotgun primarily throughout his college and NFL career, like played a ton of shotgun. Can you do under center stuff? Can you do a play action with your back to the defense and turn around? I mean, when Ben Johnson said we're tearing it down to the studs and we're rebuilding it, those are the examples, like very fundamental things. Left foot forward instead of right foot forward, under center in addition to shotgun. I mean, like they're at the beginning of all of these things.
Yeah, that's something else. Is this guy hasn't done a lot of that play action stuff, is switching up the footwork, figuring out a new offense. And I love how Ben's kind of going about everything he's doing. Like you guys remember, we're watching practice, Caleb struggling in the huddle a little bit. He looks to Ben, but the play clock's running down. Ben's like, it's under 20 seconds. I'm not going to be able to talk to you. Figure it out. Delay a game. It's a tough love that I think's really going to help Caleb Williams down the stretch, right? It's when the huddle looks good, the F that, get back in the huddle. It's when Cole Kmet comes out the huddle and he's aligned 2 yards shy of where he needs to be. It's no, go back in the huddle, come back out and align right. Every yard matters when I'm trying to get you the ball, trying to create a little more space on the inside here. It's a game of inches, not just a cliche. It really is. So I love the way Ben's going about this coaching.
I think that is sort of our 1A headline is the quarterback, right? 1B is like learning more about Ben Johnson, like getting to hear from him 3 consecutive days, like 3 straight days of practice where we were out there, we got to see it with our eyes and then ask him questions about what he's working on. What did he see? For him to call out the quarterback very publicly, I think it was Courtney Cronin who asked him like, what happened there? And he said, yeah, Caleb was late. Like for a coach to be so transparent with us and tell us what we're seeing, so many people would be like, I got to go back and watch the tape. There might've been something weird there. Like, I gotta make sure it's right. No, Ben's like, I know exactly what I saw and Caleb was wrong. Like he needs to be earlier there. So we've never seen that before, or I've never seen that before really. And any coach that I've covered, to have sort of the wherewithal, the confidence, the sort of conviction in his coaching style to be able to come out and say those things. Obviously, it's all rainbows and sunshine for Ben Johnson right now. If you start the year 2-6, like we might have some things he might get a little tight-lipped, but I think right now it's really cool to hear from Ben Johnson, get to know him better, learn more about his coaching style. And I loved, Clay, we talked about this on the Big Pro Football Show. I loved how Ben Johnson has been preaching accountability. And the first thing he did when he was asked about how those practices went was he took accountability and said, I need to be better. There's some things with communication with my staff. Like I'm going to get better there. Like it's practicing what you preach. And there's a lot to like about what Ben Johnson represents right now for the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, I would say like the on-field product right now kind of looks a little similar to what we've seen, but it feels different and it sounds different, right? So this coaching staff, and not just Ben, I mean, Bieniemy, he's coaching the whatever out of those running backs, he's going to get the most out of those guys. Antoine Randall, you see him coaching up the receivers. These guys are playing 100% full speed from the start of practice to the end of practice. Dan Rochar, he's barking out orders too. He's a guy that's a no-nonsense type guy. Dennis Allen, I mean, you see him up there every play after every defensive snap. You hear Ben and see Ben. Dennis Allen's doing it too. He's basically the head coach of that defense. Mm-hmm. So you love to see how energetic and how these players talk about how they wanted to be held accountable. That's exactly what they're getting. They're getting held accountable. I thought that has been something that's been huge as well.
Yeah, agreed entirely. We said it at the very early outset, like the pace might be slower. There's less like running around 𝗮𝘗, everything was like high tempo. I haven't necessarily felt that tempo. The intensity is way up, though. It feels like they're squeezing more out of what they're doing. They're not going past the mistakes, the volume of it all. Like it seems like every position coach, to be quite honest. Clay listed a few, but it seems like just about every guy is a no nonsense big, like it's either like really experienced or player, right? Fitting in those categories. Vibes are definitely different, even though, as you said, Clay, it looks clunky, right? Looks clunky, looks similar, a lot of pre-snap issues like we've seen in the past. But you're absolutely right. The vibes around practice, the feeling, all of that stuff, different.
Let's end with this, guys, too, because if those are our first two headlines, I think our third headline is that they're also having a lot of fun. The big boys catching balls, quarterbacks catching balls, Ben Johnson holding sort of an audition for, you want to be my Dan Skipper, you want to be my Penei Sewell, like you get one opportunity to show me that you can throw and you can catch. So let's have fun. Let me see what you can do. Darnell Wright made a case. Obviously, he gave a lot of credit to 𝗮𝗄 Keenum, who made that behind the back catch. Cole Kmet threw a nice ball. We knew DJ Moore could throw because they've tried. Tried. Didn't go well.
Keenan Allen also tried.
Keenan Allen had a nice completion to the defense. The defense last year.
Oh yeah. But anyway, that I think is where we should end here. Is just that there's a lot of positivity and excitement and fun being had as well.
Yeah, since I really didn't, I'll do a real quick rundown on some of my players I feel like stuck out during this mandatory mini camp, since I really hadn't had a chance. I thought it was interesting the names that Ben Johnson brought up. He's not bringing up the guys that are on the poster for the Chicago Bears and on the front of the website. He's bringing up Kyle Monangai. Obviously, we talked about him catching the football, getting a lot of reps with the ones. That's always interesting to see. He brought up Ruben Hippolyte, who we've seen covered Cole Kmet several times, several nice plays with DeAndre Swift. And he was actually playing weak side linebacker because TJ Edwards has a little soft tissue injury. It's a middle linebacker. Comes in, now he's learning a different position, was learning a little bit of Sam to try to win that position. Okay, now you have to play weak side linebacker, and he's done a really good job. He's playing with the ones. He's learned quickly. And then you hear about Joel Wilson. Obviously, this guy's coming into a tight end room that's pretty tight and packed, but I mean, he's one of my camp crushes, I got to say, not just because he's a tight end, guys. I really like Joel Wilson. I think this guy can run, he can catch. But the thing I will say is when I was a player and I would see a guy like Joel Wilson come in, and I'd be like, wow, like this kid, like who is this guy? And I'm the Durham Smythe, right, or something. And I'm like, okay, let's wait until we throw pads on. Let's see what he does when Montez is coming off the edge. I know I'm going to be able to stay in front of Montez and hold my own. Let's see what Joel Wilson does in front of Montez Sweat before we start, handing him this roster spot here. So that's what I always used to say as a player. If there was a kid that would come out in OTAs playing well. And then he also mentioned who was the last guy? There was four.
It was two on defense. Dom Robb.
Oh, Dom Robb. Well, Dom Robb, he's a specimen. I mean, we see it, guys. I mean, this guy, you want to see him. Hopefully he takes a jump with the pads on. Dio, I felt like didn't play at all.
Not there for team.
For the team drills. So Dom Robb did a nice job there. Another guy that I liked, I talked about Cole. I thought Cole had a solid OTAs and minicamp, showing his versatility. Dennis Allen, like you said, he came out firing, man. He was really, really not holding anything back. And a lot of times these OTAs, you want it to be vanilla so you can kind of figure things out. So I thought he did a nice job. Alex already mentioned Tyreek Stevenson playing cornerback. He had some solid plays. I thought he got beat a little bit, but he did show that he's going to take, in my opinion, I think he's got the ability to take a step in this defense. So I thought DJ had a good OTAs and mini camp. Rome looked solid, didn't get a ton of balls, but just the way he's running his routes and
he's such a pro.
Crisp. And 𝗏𝗏𝗍𝗄𝗏 𝗍𝗍, that's one of our camp crushes as well. Thought he looked good and is going to get on the field a little bit this year.
Yeah, I think with Luther Burden III not practicing, I think that gave 𝗻𝗂 𝗃𝗍𝗃 a lot of opportunities to be out there, and he maximized them. I mean, that's someone where I kept, we're trying to learn the new numbers of all the new players, and I kept being like 14. It's not Gerald Everett. And I kept looking down. It's like, it's 𝗻𝗂 𝗃𝗍𝗃 again catching the ball. So it just felt like you saw him pop up a lot, and he was my standout player last week as well.
How about him returning punts? I thought that was interesting. So, I mean, if you guys probably told the story, but I know we talked about it in the Big Pro Football Show, but everybody's returning punts, right? And you got the guys, Duvernay's back there, some of these 𝗵 Richardson. Is that his name? 𝗵 Richardson, another one of our crushes. Me and Alex love 𝗵 Richardson from TCU, rookie receiver. Everybody's, you catch the ball, you see the ball off the kicker's foot, Ruthie's favorite player's foot, and you track it. The punter, sorry. 𝗻𝗂 𝗃𝗍𝗃 is facing the other direction. He's backwards. He's not turning around until the ball is starting its descent, and then he picks up the ball. It's just a drill, like a distraction drill. If you don't see the ball, just making him better. Because if you can catch a punt looking the other direction, it's like if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge ball. If you can dodge traffic, you can dodge ball. If you can catch a punt looking the other direction and then turning around right before it hits your hands, then you can catch a punt where you're looking the whole time. So that's the veteran mindset of getting better that a guy like 𝗍𝗍, 𝗻𝗂 𝗃𝗍𝗃, brings to the Bears. So I think that he's going to be interesting this year. He looked quick, was making a lot of catches. So when they're in 10 personnel, for sure, you're going to see 𝗍𝗍. And I think he'll have a couple packages in 11 even.
That to me felt like I'm probably projecting here. I'm just going to say I am projecting here. But it's like, oh, you drafted two guys who play in the slot, Colston Loveland and Luther Burden. Well, let me remind you why you signed me in free agency to be your slot guy, because I know what I'm doing and I'm pretty darned good at it. That's to me what it felt like with 𝗍𝗍.
Yeah, he is going to be a fun one to kind of watch how the reps and the snaps pan out for him, for sure. Guys, that's going to do it for this edition of the Charter Podcast. Big announcement over the weekend. Possibly the biggest piece of news is that Chicago Sports Network is now available for Xfinity and Comcast subscribers. So you can watch the Big Pro Football Show every single night. We talk about the Bears on our network, even though it's not Bears season. It's always Bears season for Chicago Sports Network. So you can watch our show every single day, Monday through Friday. We're either at 5 o'clock or 5:30. Clay, are we 5 o'clock all week this week, or are we 5:30 all week? You don't know.
I'm not sure. 5:30 is my guess because we're at the UC. I don't know.
Go to CHSN.com. Check the TV listings.
Yeah.
Yes.
All the information is on the TV.
We have a lot of information there for you. So make sure you watch. We're so excited. Obviously, the Chicago Lead is also on our air, another all Chicago sports show. And of course, White Sox pre and post game, the whole shebang. So,
you might be watching this show on Xfinity right now.
You might be
watching this on Comcast
now that
right
I think
now.
about it. That's exactly right. We are, I forget that this show goes on TV now, which is cool. But anyways, we want to thank our listeners, our viewers, as always, for tuning into the Charter Podcast. Thanks to our producer and coordinator, Edgar Perez, who is just the bomb. And always thanks to Clay Harbor and Alex Shapiro, who are just the most fun on this show. I'm Ruthie Polinsky. This is the Charter Podcast. We'll see you later this week.